Hey, welcome back to our What's Your Next crew. We are continuing on with the franchise disclosure document, and for those who've been following along with us, we've covered a whole mess of it. We've covered items 1 to 17 previously. Today we're going to be going through item 18 of the FDD, which really has to do with disclosure of involvement of any public figures in that franchise. And it's a little bit of a tricky item in that there's really not a lot that you can do about this particular item, meaning that if you have some type of philosophical issues with these individuals that are involved in this particular franchise that are disclosed, they're probably not going to leave just because you don't become a franchisee. So, but it is important that you do understand they are involved and that you do not have those type of philosophical issues before you acquire that franchise.
Welcome to What's Your Next. This is the go-to podcast for aspiring business owners who want to get to the next level, escape the rat race, and give their middle finger to the corporate 9-to-5. If you want financial freedom, work-life balance, and the business of your dreams, you're in the right place. Dave and Stacy Riska, husband-wife franchising duo, openly share their successes, failures, and lessons learned in franchising, business ownership, and working with your spouse.
What we're going to do is we're going to cover some of the key points of item 18. So the first one is, what is the definition of a public figure? So Stacy, can you go ahead and give us a little information on what the definition of a public figure is?
A public figure is kind of what it sounds like. It's going to be somebody who has some well-known stature. It may be a professional athlete, an actor, a musician. Think like celebrity. So, for example, when you've probably seen some of these celebrities on TV for the Subway commercials, or in the case of one of the franchises we work with called Clean Juice, they actually have Tim Tebow as their spokesperson. That would be considered a public figure. But here's the little caveat about it. A public figure only has to be disclosed in item 18 if that public figure is involved in the sale and the marketing of the franchise, not necessarily in the customer-facing marketing. So in the Subway example I just gave you, let's say Tom Brady, you see him eating a sub, well, that's customer-facing. That doesn't have to be disclosed in item 18. But if Tom Brady is encouraging you to buy a franchise, then it must be disclosed in item 18.
Right, very, very clear definition there that it's not the public side of the exposure to the public figure that is important. It's in the marketing and sale of the franchise itself that becomes part of the item 18 in the FDD. And as Stacy said, most of the time this relationship is related to marketing, and there's so many examples of this. So maybe give a couple examples of where public figures that you've seen that were involved in the marketing of the franchises themselves.
Two examples come to mind. One would be Robert Harrington from Shark Tank. He is a real smart businessman, and he is involved in many different franchises, encouraging you and or the public to become a franchisee in one of the systems that he's involved with. That would have to be disclosed as a public figure. Or another one might be Shaq, right? We all know Shaq. Well, he has his own chicken franchise. So he would be disclosed as a public figure because he's involved in the sale and marketing of the franchise.
Right. So great examples there. Very clear in those examples that these are quote unquote public figures that are involved in the marketing of the franchise itself, not necessarily the sale of the products of the franchise to the public. Very clear definition there. And the next point is relating to financial obligations. Can you just go through what that means a little bit as far as item 18?
Yeah, it just means that if there's a public figure noted in item 18, this section, this subsection is going to denote what, if anything, they're being paid how much they're being paid, are there royalties or fees. It's basically going to delineate any payments that they're receiving for their involvement in being a public figure for that franchise.
That's pretty straightforward, obviously. And then this gets a little bit deeper in the next particular point, and that's what is the public figure's involvement in management and control of the franchise. So, Stacey, do you want to expand on that a little bit? I mean, it seems pretty straightforward to me, but you might have some insight you might want to share.
Yeah, it's just basically denoting if that public figure has any management or control in the day-to-day operations of the franchise. That could be important to know, because if you have a philosophical difference with this public figure, but they have a lot of involvement and or financial control in that franchise, just, you need to consider that as part of your decision.
Right. And so the next point is kind of the same thing. It's the franchisor's control. What does that mean as far as item 18 and public figures?
Well, it's going to delineate what the franchisor can or can't do, especially related to its franchisees. So the franchisor may say that, oh, well, because we have Shaq, who is a public figure, then you can and or maybe you can't use Shaq's name, logos, marks, references in your local marketing. So that would be important to pay attention to in this section.
Right. So there's a lot of information in this section that you should be aware of in item 18 as it pertains to public figures and what that means to you as a franchisee, and what the relationships are and the rules and regulations are in how that person is used in your own marketing of the business. So you may be restricted from not doing it. You may be allowed to do it. It may be encouraged to do it. It really just depends how this is spelled out in item 18. I think you're going to find this is probably very different in a lot of different FDDs from a lot of different franchises.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it for item 18. It's public figures. And we are now going to move on to item 19. We're almost there. There's 23. If you have any comments or any suggestions about item 18 or the franchise disclosure document, please feel free to leave them below. Again, if you like our content, we highly encourage you hit that subscribe button below and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for joining us for another episode of What's Your Next? We'll catch you on the next one.